Can't wait to eat this thing. Oh my god. No. No, that's awful. Oh, maybe it was just a bad bite. Hang on. No. Oh my god. Oh, this is terrible. Maybe. Maybe just one more try. That was pretty good. I don't know what to think of this cookie anymore. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 20, Episode 7, Love Lost. This was a better episode, thankfully. I actually had a decent time with this one. Not to say there were not problems with it, but overall, it was a much more entertaining episode, and I feel like the mystery, at least at the beginning, was a lot more intriguing to get to. However, like I said, definitely problems with this one, and a lot of them have to do with the line of logic that the team took in this one. Because at the beginning, I did kind of like where the logic was going. It started with, is this guy just crazy? And then as soon as they find that bit of information that shows, no, there is something going on because he was poisoned, I liked up to that point. And then they follow it to the wife. Like, okay, she leads him to the Russian gambling guy, casino owner. I'm like, okay, there's another nice line of logic. And then we get to his worker that got the text from Felix saying to run him over. And this is where the line of logic from the team's point of view kind of falls apart. Because from that point on, they're focused on, I think Felix tried to have himself killed to frame his wife. And that to me is just really dumb. Because first of all, what good does that do for him if his wife gets arrested for his attempted murder? What does that do? Oh, well, he gets proven right that she's an awful person? Okay. I mean, I know you guys think he's crazy, but do you really think he's that crazy? Like, what does he get out of it? Maybe some money from the divorce, possibly? On top of that, if he's smart enough to sabotage all of these things but make them look like accidents, why would he then also text this guy saying, hey, I want you to kill me? That is so sloppy. He's been so meticulous and careful, but then he's going to go text the guy to kill him so that it can lead right back to him? How does that make any sense? And also, if he's trying to sabotage all these things, so it nearly kills him, but he knows how to get away from it, why would he text the guy to run him over? There are so many ways that could easily go wrong. I mean, a guy in a car is not an easy thing to avoid. So having that be something he would set up to nearly kill himself, but then he manages to barely dodge it, that's a terrible way to try to get somebody to come after you. And while I'm on the text, I will say Victor, the fact that he texted using emojis and stuff, even though he has Felix's phone, he can see how Felix texts other people and probably how he texts him. The fact that he used emojis to text this guy, really dumb on Victor's part, because that does raise the question of, okay, well, he doesn't text like this, so clearly this isn't him. But then from there, obviously, they go to the hospital room, and Felix is, of course, on the run now. And the whole thought process is he somehow figured out that they knew that he had sent texts to this guy to have him run over. How on earth would he figure all of that out? Clearly, this guy thinks somebody's after him, and once he woke up in his hospital bed, he's like, well, crap, I gotta get out of here, because I'm a sitting duck in here. So it just feels really sloppy as far as the team following a line of logic. I'm looking at a lot of this going, this doesn't make sense. And you guys should be looking at this and going, this doesn't make sense. But outside of that, I mean, everything else was fine. You know, how they managed to get onto Victor in the first place and follow the clues that lead to him. Even how Felix managed to get away from Victor. I thought it was going to be kind of a thing that they just sort of overlooked and didn't really explain. But they did explain he had a Swiss Army knife that apparently the secretary gave to him at one point, and that's what he used to cut Victor's arm and get away. I'm like, okay, you know, nice little explanation there as far as how a guy like Felix could overpower a younger guy like Victor. The fact that it was Victor, I will say, is pretty predictable. You know, whenever he got introduced, nobody really talked about him. He was just sort of there as the husband for Felix's daughter. But then as soon as all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a sponsor at Gamblers Anonymous, I'm like, oh, well, there's the connection. He's the one that's trying to kill him. I don't know why. I don't know what caused all of this, but there you go. He's the one. It's just one of those formulaic things where he's not been a suspect at all. But as soon as you find out there is a connection there and it's something that's just brought up randomly, that's how you know that's what it's going to lead to. But to be fair on that, the reasoning makes sense. You know, the fact that there was an inheritance that was going to be given to Arlene that Victor could use to pay off his debts. That all connects. It makes sense. So all in all, this episode, it makes sense on the whole. There's just unfortunately that one chunk of it whenever they're suspecting that Felix is trying to have himself killed to frame his wife. That doesn't make sense. And there was a good probably 20 minutes that we spent on that story. So I will say it did drag this episode back down into the muck along with the rest of the season so far. But at least there were elements of it that did make me happy. It did make me interested. It made me laugh a couple of times. Even how it ended. I was worried they were going to have the secretary and Felix get back together. They didn't do that. And that makes sense because they're not really a good couple at this point in time. Maybe it was something, it was a fling that was working for a little while, but clearly you look at how much they argue, even though he's going through this traumatic thing, that's probably what's making her feel like she wants him around again. But at the end of the day, that's not going to last. So I'm glad that they showed at the end, they reconnected, they had that nice moment. She even said, can we go back to being friends? I'm like, there we go, that's real nice. And then you had the funny moment whenever he brings up the train set, and you could see they still are not going to get along that much because there is definitely a huge difference in their personalities, which is why they didn't work as a couple. All in all, much better episode, and I'm happy for it. But we move on to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 8, Turkey Trot. Another good episode with flaws, but overall enjoyable. In fact, got the emotions going a little bit too, which I did not expect to happen for the show, if I'm being honest. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about the two things that were not as good for me. First of all, the sisters constantly fighting. I know that was kind of the point of it, was for them to reconcile and stuff, but God, could they have made them less obnoxious, please? I mean, they were just very, very grating. And I know that's kind of the point, but it was to a point where I wasn't even enjoying it. There are certain times, when you think about villains that you're supposed to hate, sometimes they make villains that are so grating that you almost don't even want to watch because they're that frustrating to deal with. I think Umbridge from Harry Potter is a good example of that. This was an example of they're doing their jobs. The sisters are doing their jobs. They're fighting, which is supposed to make me feel like, oh, stop fighting. And it's supposed to make me feel good whenever they reconcile at the end. But it was just so much where I was just about to start fast forwarding through some of the scenes because I was like, oh my God, these are very annoying scenes to deal with. Even in the midst of this very intense situation at the end, Robin's still finding time to be like, what do you mean I put myself in these situations? Bitch, there's a guy with a gun who's about to kill all three of you. Could you shut up for 1 minute? It was so annoying. And then the other thing too was the guy at the beginning. Here's the thing, I get that he was supposed to be sort of a red herring as far as everything that happened, but he wasn't one that was hardly focused on at all. Like they questioned him about what happened, and then they just moved on. What's weird about that is he was set up to be like this very big part of this episode. Like we opened with him practicing saying hi to this, what was it, Admiral, I think? So you open with him, this very creepy scene, and then you have the explosion happen, you have them bring him in for questioning, and then you just move on. Why open with this big scene with him then if it's not even going to lead to anything? It's literally just he's a weird dude that really admires the Admiral and wants to talk to her and say hi because he's a big fan, and that's it. Why spend time setting up this red herring that's supposed to fool the audience into thinking, oh no, he might be a dangerous guy, and then almost instantly we're like, nope, he's not moving along. It was so weird. It felt like we were just wasting time more than anything. But outside of that, I think pretty much everything else worked. At first I was very concerned with this whole Jess going to meet her sister for Thanksgiving and all of this stuff. But the way it ties into what's going on, this guy wanting to kill Jess, so he got engaged to her sister. It was all pretty well set up, and then the emotions that they brought near the end with Jess talking about remembering everybody she's lost that she wasn't able to save. Very, very well handled, and the acting from her in that scene was brilliant. I don't typically talk about the acting in this show because I think everybody just does a decent enough job. They feel believable in character. Nobody really does a lot to, I think, bring their A game, even in some of the more emotional scenes. Sometimes it can feel like they're trying, but they're not giving 100%. That scene, for some reason, I don't know what it was, but it felt like she was really bringing the emotion. How she looked, how she sounded, and I think the guy's reaction too really tied in with it as well. And it got to a point where even when they cut to Casey and Robin, who were both tearing up, normally I would feel like that's kind of overdoing it. from the directing point of view to be like, oh guys, this is really sad. See, even they're crying. I almost kind of feel like this could be literally their reaction as they're watching her perform this scene. I could see that being what happened because it was so well done. So ultimately, well done episode. Yes, still has its flaws, but that's to be expected, I think. Pretty sure most episodes are going to have flaws when you get to season 20. But at the very least, these are 2 episodes in a row where it felt like there was something about it that worked. While it still did have flaws, it still did entertain me. And that's so far better than anything else this season has provided. So we'll move along to the next one. Hopefully they can continue this. Fingers crossed. I'll see you guys there in a sec. And finally, episode 9, Higher Education. It was fine. Nothing really that special about it. I always like the episodes whenever Delilah comes around because her and Tim typically work together as a couple. And it's a shame that she's not around more often, to be fair, because they actually do share some good chemistry, which is why it's so weird that she's hardly ever around. I thought it was perfectly okay. One of her students be involved, and so she gets involved, and then got this whole foreign spy thing going on. It was okay. A little anticlimactic, finding out that the roommate's the one that took the thumb drive in the end. I will say probably the assistant was the weakest part for me, just because she came off as so uppity and chipper and stuff, and so random on top of it. Kind of knew she was going to be the bad guy in the end. Again, very similar to the assistant that Dr. Grace had a few episodes ago, because she seemed just way too random to be introduced and then just to not come back again. So this is sort of what I was expecting, though, the assistant being involved somehow. And so whenever they find out that he was messaging somebody and McGee's like, oh, actually, I've met them before. I'm like, oh, there we go. So the assistant, she's the handler for this guy. So if anything, this was probably one of the more forgettable episodes this season. That's probably the only real complaint I have about it, is just it's not really that memorable, which, again, having Delilah on it should be a bit more memorable because I like the relationship that she and McGee have. At least it's not memorable in a bad way. I guess you could take for that what you will. But with all that being said, 3 episodes that, in my opinion, are better compared to what I've gotten so far this season. I hope that's a good sign. It could be these are the only 3 episodes that I find the least frustrating. I don't have high hopes for this season, but I'm hoping at the very least it's not as bad as how the season began. But with all that being said, those are my thoughts on these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on here as well as some Let's Plays. So check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.